Hey everybody, this is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook live stream, and this is the video about Romulus, Prometheus, and other alien movies, and the horror of the alien mythos. And this is also a space to scream about the movie and the greater significance of the entire Alien franchise, um, among other things. So, sorry, my chat is off or not functioning for a second. Um, yeah, so Alien Romulus. If you haven't seen it before, you are not alone. You are not alone in that space. Um, uh, I have read a whole lot about it though, and I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of it. We'll just put it that way. And Romulus is of course the latest Alien movie that you probably have already heard about. It's everywhere, in all the news sites, movie sites, social media spaces. Um, Giant insectile xenomorphic creatures with smaller, razor tooth eels coming out of their external jaws. Uh, Facehuggers wrapped around people's faces. People screaming all over the place. Our army of facehuggers, like uh, charging towards the the hapless crew members of various space mining, space colonizing, and space venturing vessels. So, anyways, and Romulus, of course, is the latest entry um, in this. Um, it seems to be doing fairly well. Just on the obvious, like it seems to be gaining a lot of steam. I heard like it's the best Alien since the original two. I've been hearing that a lot from people. I mean, obviously, the reviews are still coming in. Um, and it'll be interesting to see like what impact this movie has uh, on wider culture in general. In this video, I'm not gonna do obviously a review or just a review of the movie. Um, but I kind of wanted to focus on things around the movie and like what the entire Alien. I mean, obviously the Ridley Scott initiated Alien series, which also has there's comic books associated with Alien versus Predator, um, and I kind of wanted to talk about like what the significance of the Alien series, which has now over 6 movies, multiple video games. If you count, some people don't count Alien versus Predator for justified reasons of they're not as good as the Alien or Predator alone movies, because there's also obviously Predator 2, Predators, the Predator, what was the most recent one, Prey. And the Aliens, Alien 3. Those are kind of like the original 3 that are very much like in sequence. Well, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. Those came out within the 80s and the 90s. And they're basically in sequence. Each one is a sequel of the previous. And then after that, you had a long break. If we just forget about if we forget about Alien versus Predator for now, I mean, I like them, but they're not the best of all the Alien movies, that's for sure. And then after the original 4 of them, we have Alien, Prometheus, which is in the Alien universe, but it's actually a prequel that's set prior to the it's almost like a prehistory. Prometheus is almost like the Greco-Roman history that predates the European medieval times, right? That's it's kind of like it's almost like and then literally it's called Prometheus, the Greek god, um, a Greek titan who stole fire from the gods, um, to bring to man, and was punished with horrible torture involving the consumption. I could be mixing up my Greek gods, but yeah, he was punished for his crime of stealing fire from the gods, to assist man, and that comes up in the in the fictional TED talk of the actual Peter Whalen of Whalen Yutani Corporation, in one of the promotional YouTube videos that came out. It's not actually in the movie, but yeah. So when we talk about mythos, it's also literal. It's literal Western antiquities mythology is like central to, and obviously Romulus, which is name of one of the locations in the movie. I believe it's a ship. It's either a ship or a colony where one side is named after Romulus, the other side is Remus, named after the original two brothers. Romulus, of course, killing the other, Remus, who founded Rome itself. Anyways, so yeah, so there's that mythological deeper. There's a lot of levels that the Alien universe works on. Based upon the recent reviews, it's the current Romulus is not. It's mostly focusing on the putting popcorn. It's focusing on the meat and potatoes of scares, or the horror film part of it, like giant, creepy, crawly things, the terror of space and being in space with, these alien creatures that are the stuff of nightmares. Somewhat Lovecraftian in that sense. The terror of, because some of that was basically, astronomers and scientists were discovering how big space was, and this kind of terrified a lot of people reading about it. It's like an existential dread of this endless black abyss that goes on for basically like ineffable, not understandable, barely contemplatable expanses, like this like dark ocean of nothingness, just blackness, right? There's a movie that came out. It's like, this is my first sidetracking myself. Silver Spook enters a space in which no one can hear a Silver Spook scream. It's called Silver Spook's Infinite Tangential Mind Space. Anyway, Aniara is a movie that literally is about specifically the existential dread. I did a whole Twitch stream about this one, but the existential dread of being lost in millions and billions of miles of space, drifting off forever. Well, what happened if you were to just be on a ship and drift off, running slowly but inexorably running out of light, power, food, social fabric, personal sanity, and your civilization light going out as you drift into nothingness. And so that's like the existential dread space story. But so space has always been a terrifying place for a lot of people. Even without horrific super weapon insectoids that gestate inside of your torso after these like skeletal human hand, like it's like a spider with human hands, but with extremely long spindly finger digits, right? Grab onto your face, insert its somewhat phallic slash it's like a imagine a spider with a urethral proboscis that extends down your throat with its tail wrapping around your neck. like a tail wrapping around your neck like a python, and with a coloration like human skin, and then it lays its eggs down your throat into your torso, which gestate there for 24 hours or so, and then after that, your rib cage explodes, and your stomach and your torso erupts in blood and guts, and the most horrific creature known to space emerges from that. And so that's I mean, of course you know that if you've seen Alien and you've seen Aliens. That's just the face hugger. And so even without that of course that's horrifying. And there's a lot, like Alien deals a lot with like motherhood, especially the first three. Ripley, like children, right? Worries about motherhood. Women's rage is obviously another one. The final girl thing is its own aspect of this, because this is coming out of time and there's a lot of those kind of movies coming out. Obviously, Halloween, the original, and several of these other ones. But with the rise of the women's movement, also that's part of what's happening in the society. And Alien historically has had final girl, strong female lead characters like Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver for Aliens, and Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. So it's actually like the whole. Every single Alien movie has had that. Aliens 3, Resurrection. Prometheus had Naomi Rapace's what's her face? Naomi Rapace played Elizabeth Shaw, the scientist, and the final girl, along in the same vein as Ripley. She has to survive. Like Ripley has to survive and watch countless of her fellow crewmates get cut into pieces, fall down get blown out airlocks, get poisoned by some nanoscopic organism that can go in through the mouth and enters your body, replicates slowly, and eventually kills you. Not COVID. No, that's a different pathogen. That is a different pathogen that requires quarantining and social distancing. But Naomi Rapace has to watch everybody die in her crew, and she is the final girl. And in Covenant, it's a similar story, with a different character. I forget the name of that character in Covenant. What is the main character? Catherine Waterston, who plays. Is it Catherine? Catherine Waterston. Yeah. Daniels. That's what it is. Yeah. So Daniels, kind of has like a 1980s Ripley sort of look, but in every single Alien movie, it's always it's always a final girl, a woman that is surviving the entire sequence of events up till the end. And everyone else is dying, often because they're not listening to her. And she gets more and more upset. She gets more and more scared, but then also more and more upset, and then also more and more has to take matters into her own hands. And by the end, is usually using a flamethrower, a power loader, a power loader with a flamethrower on it. Giant grappling hook, something is having to figure out, outsmart, outwit, and outfight the most hostile, the most deadly creature known in the universe. Yeah. Anyways, so that's a whole thing. So we could just you could spend a whole stream just on, you can make a whole video just on the final girl thing, the strong female protagonist aspect of the Alien franchise. But yeah, so it's a movie that's one of the impacts when I'm talking about like um obviously I'm speaking on many levels when I talk about the horror of the alien mythos, talking about Greek mythology, Greek Greco-Roman mythology with Romulus, Prometheus, um, that is obviously harkened back to. You had like Alabaster, like Prometheus literally has like the engineer elder race that is sentient, sapient species of life that came far before the humanity and predates the aliens as well, and then also engineered and created the aliens, and also as you learn later on, human life, right? And these characters are like they look literally like they look like what Greek and Roman statues appear like now. Even the original Greek and Roman statues were actually painted, and they were not bleached like cocaine white like that. They did not look like they were like dipped in some kind of strange, rapidly hardening milk substance, right? But they look like what the antiquities era statues look like now. So and there's a whole many ways. There's many ways in which especially the first two chronological alien movies, which are Prometheus #1 and then Covenant #2. Those two are definitely playing on that mythological. Where do we come from? Who created us? Like, I think Peter Weyland says at one point in Prometheus, searching for that which created us, searching for our parents, right? There's searching for and perhaps the meaning of life and existence at all, right? There's no greater task. There's no greater calling, right? That's something that Peter Weyland talks about, and like those first two definitely deal with that. And like as a species, right? Where did we come from? And then when you go to space, you find out that your creators are extremely powerful, but they also absolutely hate you, think you are a mistake, and are basically trying to abort you. They're trying to your creators are trying to exterminate you, and they kill you by taking your child's head off, ripping your child's head off, and smashing you down. That literally happens in Prometheus. So that in some ways like that, because so it's like talking about like the mythology and the mythos of because I think in these ways a lot, because like Neofeud, the games, the stuff that I make, the science fiction that I make, which has a lot to do with it, of sci-fi, speculative fiction, cyberpunk in general, but it's more like I work within existing mythos in a kind of like in a very meta way in Neofeud and Neofeud 2 especially. Neofeud 2 has a lot. The sequel to Neofeud 1, sidebar, and I'll come back to this. Neofeud 2 is nearly completed. I'm going to be finishing Neofeud 2 minus sound, Neofeud 2 sound, music, voice acting, and debugging this month in about 16 days. I have a time limit, so I can't spend all day streaming this. But if you want to learn about Neofeud 2, don't forget to check out Neofeud 1. This is a video of it. But Neofeud 2 deals directly with the alien universe. Like in some ways, one of the central premises of Neofeud 2 was directly inspired by the alien universe. The main character in Neofeud 2, his name, this character, see if I can find him here. Yeah, this character, the robot, the ex-military robot character in Neofeud 2, is named Nostromo. Partially after there's an older 1800s very famous novel, and Nostromo, written by Joseph Conrad, and Nostromo was the main character, right? But Nostromo was also a ship within the Alien movie, like like in Alien. In Alien, the name of the ship in which the crew is transporting. They're like space truckers. The name of the ship which they are transporting the goods and what half of the movie, most of the movie takes place on is the USCSS Nostromo. You have to you can go back and read the actual book. Was it? I can't remember. It was a call book. Yeah, Nostromo: A Tale of the Seaboard is a 1904 novel by Joseph Conrad set in the fictitious South American Republic of Costa Guana. Anyway, so this is what this is. And we'll eventually get to that, I'm sure. What the significance of that book is, but the USCSS Nostromo, just in the history of the alien movies, right, was the original, and it's a ship in which everything goes horribly wrong. And that's actually the name of the main character in Neofeud 2, the robot character. And but also in the Prometheus films, right, which deal with these ancient elder race that created, right, this race of people that created the human race, the xenomorphs, everything basically, or maybe not everything, but certainly they created the originators of the human race. They created the human race ultimately through it's unclear exactly in the first film, but it's like through semi-intelligent design or pseudo-intelligent. It's not necessarily intelligent design. Through manipulation and kickstarting of life, that's kind of what's implied by the dissolving of the bodies of their race, or it's some kind of ritual suicide that they're taking part in at the very start of Prometheus, in their opening sequence, the very first sequence in Prometheus. It's suggested that they gave birth to the human species, and they certainly know of it. They know where the humans are. They know they did create the biological weapon that is a mass viral pathogen, and what is not immediately killed by this. Let me see if I can find that. They create this black liquid, right? And this black substance, this goo, it dissolves the body. It immediately kills by basically molecular disintegration, and then viral infection. And what doesn't die from chemical warfare and or viral illness, like basically super space COVID. Within days to weeks, everything on the planet is dead, because if you don't die from those two things, right, immediate annihilation, right, then the remaining animal material, so rabbits, dogs, cows, humans, crocodiles, any animal, it spares plants. It spares plants, which is, I think that's actually very important when we think about things like the neutron bomb. If you think about the actual history, human history, and certain people's history in particular, extremely violent people's history, extremely malicious, it's extremely terrifying people's history, right? The use of what the implied use of neutron bombs, mass death of animals, and then humans also specifically, biological warfare, right, to cleanse territory. For example, to make new worlds in the new world, right? So cleansing the territory of all, and sometimes like the buffalo, to cleanse of a certain kind of human, right? Wiping out of all of the animals. This is part of the history of, certain people. Anyway, so I think that actually the way that this biological weapon functions, right? This is actually, that is the horrible mythology, which is based upon the history of you know, people who had originators, and they harken back to Romulus, right, and Remus, whose worlds were also based upon what, similar horror and similar terror exhibited upon vast quantities of animal life and human life across the earth. Anyway, I'm being very cryptic about that because I'm trying to, anyways, but yeah, so the black liquid, I think that's actually one of the important things. I don't know if this is intended or not. Maybe this is just accidental, but like, to me, this what that reads as, this is actually the history of empires, certainly imperial history. It's colonial history, right? It's wiping out all the animals and then arriving on your Mayflower. I believe this exact sentiment was, and now the eye of divine providence has shown upon us this terra nullius, this devoid land, this pure, unspoiled, untouched nature is made ready for us, right? Which is part of that was going to, like, now there's nobody here. Now there's nothing here. Everyone's gone. Who knows how they were made to disappear? But we definitely didn't bring biological warfare smallpox blankets. We definitely didn't do that. Who could possibly have? Anyway, so so the biological warfare, and I have many streams about this. If you want to learn about biological warfare and how this process has functioned, and biological warfare and terror, which are not Hollywood movie terror. I'm talking about literal terror, like kind of what the U.S. is doing in and has done in the Middle East. Not the scary movie Aliens. Anyways, but I have there's many videos that deal with biological warfare, and extermination. There's a Resident Evil video. I can't remember where I put that one. Anyways, I'll go back to the present. So I think that I feel like so that's actually important. I think that's actually very significant, right? Where the black liquid in Alien comes from, what it does, right? What it signifies in the universe of Alien, which is a very hostile universe, right? Chemical A03959X.91-15 is a lethal liquid material created by engineers, the engineers, not just some engineers, as a means to create human life. The sacrifice engineer drank some of the substance in the beginning of Prometheus, and his DNA began to fall apart, eventually resulting in him falling off a cliff into a lake where his DNA became mixed with the water and began to be reassembled as human life. So that's like that I guess that's part of what's in it. There's a lot of, it's very poetic and like suggestive. You don't exactly know what is happening, but later in Prometheus, Elizabeth Shaw and her crew explored the alien temple where thousands of urns of the liquid was discovered. David touched one of the liquid urns and it shortly began to ooze. So David is kind of like, he does like a Eve. He's like the male Eve in some sense, in the Western biblical sense of like touching, accessing the incorrect, cherry tomato of knowledge, touching the wrong thing which you shouldn't have touched, right, causes the collapse of the paradise and then sudden horror to befall you, right? And David is also it's also like Prometheus, right, touching, stealing the fire, which is basically signifies technology, right, knowledge, capabilities from the gods. David touches the liquid, and he's touching everything. He's touching the wall. He's touching this like microbiology based biocomputing web work of possibly some kind of mushroom based spore network, like a fungal super internet. David is like touching all of this stuff. He's touching the bulbous tumor like holodeck of the engineers to awaken it. He's playing flutes. He's playing this alien space flute. He teaches his twin but less fucked up brother, Walter, to play this space flute. He loves touching things. He's a real tactile, touchy-feely person. He doesn't have a fidget spinner, I don't think, but I picture him fidgeting with it a lot if he had one. Anyways, yeah. So anyway, so the black liquid, and I'm talking about like David specifically, but the black liquid is a substance that does these horrible things. But apparently it also creates human life. Yeah, that's what that says anyway. It's representative of some kind of technology that is beyond the humans' understanding. But it also is, it is functionally used as biological warfare, right? It does result in the death of all humanoid, hominid, and all other animal life. In Alien Covenant, that becomes very clear. Like in Alien Covenant, which was directly directed, Ridley Scott is involved. He's the original director of Alien, and he is behind a lot. He has a very hands-on, he has a very clear visions of what he wants and what he sees in these movies. The Blade Runner series, Alien series, and so much is owed to him of what is in Alien. Obviously, H.R. Geiger, right, who was a famous artist that originally created the Alien designs, among many other things, and made. Himself had chronic night terrors and all kind of horrible dreams, and also very sexual dreams. Obviously, that's a lot of Alien. There's a lot of bodily horror and weird sexual fantasies messed with this kind of just terrifying nightmares, insects, weird BDSM club imagery. It's a very unique look. There's a lot of biomechanical fusion going on. Like the inside of the ship looks like the rib cage of some animal. You've got a lot of skin orifices, sinew, muscle, cartilage. They almost look like many of the Geiger works looks like MRI, X-ray, and medical imagery. They look like artist manipulated versions of or artist impressions of cancer or colonoscopies that are rendered in this kind of two-tone very very detailed style, but also simultaneously very nightmarish. A lot of inevitably, cyberpunk itself, right, which is obviously the subgenre. I also work in that genre. But cyberpunk deals with the merging of the human and the machine, right, and the artificial intelligence, cyborg, cybernetic organisms, like Terminator, and all that was on the mind of a lot of people, obviously, in the 70s and 80s, as machines were more and more pervading the world. The computer technology was more and more entering. Star Wars obviously has that partially. Darth Vader himself is a large parts robot and then part humanoid, RoboCop. And the Alien universe, and Geiger was taking this in a much darker direction. Even in Neuromancer, there's actually an excerpt. I was rereading Neuromancer, which is the original cyberpunk book, basically. The proto cyberpunk book. There's direct references to Alien as well, and multiple references to Geiger. The machine gun. Let's see if I can find that one. There's this imagery called the I think is it called The Gun? I can't remember what it is exactly. Let me get that. The Birth Machine Gun, right? This is one of the H.R. Geiger's drawings. Little children inside of these magazine of a giant gun of some kind, um, being fired out. Is this like a literal gun? Oh yeah, here's the original artwork. Yeah, that's like, yeah. Children being fired out of the chamber of some kind of giant pistol, right? Um, and in Neuromancer, there's basically that, but it's like a wasp nest, like the insect with a very painful sting. Right after the main character is in a space station filled with ancient eldritch, extremely wealthy British, French, colonial, feudal, corporate family merger called the Tessier Ashpool. And their palace is called the Spindle, and he's been to Freeside, which is their giant space resort city. But in this, they have infinite clones of themselves that just they keep on ice, and they unfreeze, they defrost from cryo every so many years to handle business, accounting, and do politicking in, global geopolitical affairs from their space station hive above, where they pump out, it's like the 36, like 3 Jane to 6 Jane, 8 Jane, Ashpool clone number 15. They just keep cloning themselves, right? And like in the Weyland Yutani Corporation, and so this is where like many things are being mixed up together, obviously, but like a lot of the imagery, it's like a lot of the imagery in the cyberpunk world, the man and machine fusion, the horror of space, right? All of this was being impacted. Like obviously H.R. Geiger's artwork was impacting these things, right? And his designs, right? His designs inspired and were the concept art for the Alien films, right? But like thinking about corporations, right, which ultimately are the descendant of the feudal, wealthy aristocrat dynasties. The oligarchy prior was called feudal, and now it's corporate dynasties, and that's Neofeud. Obviously, is a game that deals directly with that concept. But these new corporate machines, right, which are also very inhuman, right, like ruthlessly slaughtering their workers. Like that's and that's another major topic of Alien. The original Alien is basically a blue collar working class group of space 18-wheeler drivers, right? They're basically hauling cargo. They're doing mining, and they're moving equipment back and forth, and they're being paid. And it starts out, right, with the this terrifying, horrific with Harry Dean Stanton. Sigourney Weaver is on the crew, obviously, but it's got it's actually there's the black worker, and then there's the broke Detroit. Harry Dean Stanton had been he was in Pretty in Pink as the depressed, Rust Belt, laid off worker, right? Because a part of the existential another form of the terror was the terror of the Reaganomics era, which is also part of the cyberpunk, right? All of these things are kind of blending up in a kind of ethos, zeitgeist frappe, like a milkshake of corporate death, human machine, cybernetic techno fear, space, space, just general space existential dread, and of course the women's movement, signified in the the main female final girl protagonist. But one of the things that was actually important in Alien that many people like not necessarily remember is that like the crew, right, is very upset that they have to do this sidetracking. They're basically going to have to work extra hours. You know, like there was no such thing as quiet quitting in that time, but the class dynamics, the class struggle. There at one point, Harry Dean Stanton, his character, right? He's kind of like the broke, poor Detroit worker that's like laid off in Pretty in Pink. He's kind of like he's almost recapping that role in some ways in this, in like the oppressed urban worker, and then the black character is like the other, obviously he's black, but he's also like they're like the lowest ranking people. They're like handling the engine room, you know. They're like all the Irish poors, right? That drown first on the Titanic, right? They're the cannon fodder, right? Living in Stratford upon Hull, and then they send them off into the Red Sea, into the Costa Guana, into the Cape of Africa to terrorize the world, you know. But they're like the poorest, the lowest ranking people, right? In this corporation, they're like the entry level worker, and they're like upset. They're like, why we're not being paid very much, and now we're not gonna get paid extra to go do this sidetracked. We're gonna have to come and work on the weekend. And then at one point in Alien, the workers actually strike. They say we're on strike, and then the boss is like very funny, but it's like, you know, they're like we're not gonna, you know, they're kind of basically they're threatening collective worker action against the corporation. Right now in the feudal times, it was called a peasant uprising, and then there would be a massacre by the police. I'm sorry, the knights. I was also watching House of the Dragon, so that's, you know, that's what you get to do to keep the unjust system going. But you know, it's basically like they are threatened by the corporation though, like with some kind of economic punishment, and obviously the corporation ultimately doesn't care about them. And you know, you know what, if you see the alien, you know what happens to them. And the all so this kind of like faceless machine, that is, I think it's see the alien. Is it called Mother? In Alien Resurrection, it's called Father. Not the Alienware desktop. Yeah. The Weyland-Yutani computer, right? Which is this 1980s. It's 1980s green, black on green, and that's where the Matrix gets its aesthetic from, right? It's just like 1980s, late 1970s, early 80s computer style. The Weyland-Yutani interface and the Weyland-Yutani Corporation only speaks through this artificial intelligence that is kind of like representative of this like unknown, unintelligible, like not understandable mind, kind of like space and the alien itself, right? And like the way that the way that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which was, and also like in this time in the late 70s, there was like stagflation was happening, the trend towards a trend towards what later became neoliberalism, or this like austerity, mass firing, deindustrialization, right? Creating, I mean, there was the steel, the steel belt, like this great production house, right? The Ford, the Model T, the GM trucks, the industrial powerhouse of the United States, putting out these cars, putting out, you know, appliances and refrigerators and your microwaves and making things, right? This it became the Rust Belt, right, in the late 70s and then the 80s, and so there's the existential economic terror, right? That's like signified by the Weyland-Yutani black, like it's black as the void of space, right? Which is kind of like faceless, depersonalized green text, right? Was another layer of the terror that people were going through. Like, what was going to happen to American families, American jobs, when the main breadwinner working at the Ford, right, at the GM, at the Chrysler plant, as it shuts down, what will happen to them, right? And what will they do? What will their children eat? Like, how will they afford their mortgage, their rent, their needs, right? And like, you know, like I think Harry D. Stanton, you know, he had been in multiple movies that were dealing with that process, right? The Batman, the original Batman, um, Michael Keaton, right? He was in this movie called Gung Ho, which deals with the factories being leaving the United States and going abroad. Now this one was going to Japan, but much of the factory, it was leaving U.S. going to Japan, going to China, going to somewhere in Asia, or just going somewhere else. Some are going to Mexico, right? And some of what conservatives still play on is the fear of the immigrant taking jobs, but the reality is the corporations were seeking higher profits, as they always are. And some of these did leave. Many of these, many industrial operations that were producing actual things like vehicles, air conditioners, right? These left, and that was a real fear. That was a real horror. I mean, in the real world, that was a real fear that Americans had to deal with. There was no guarantee, right, what would happen to you, right? And very bad things did happen to many people. Many people. There were a lot of suicides. There were a lot of deaths. There were a lot of families fell apart. There were a lot of drug use, alcoholism. All these things took off, and it was not an illegitimate fear of what would happen. And so in the Alien, right? So the Weyland-Yutani Corporation that is, and they try as best as they can, right? It's kind of like the mediator between the oligarchic, unjust rulers of a feudal or a corporate feudal or a old school feudal unjust system, unjust structure of the political economic reality, right, and organization of the society and the labor value and the power in the society. So the corporation, this kind of represents the kind of like depersonalization, the soulless entity that is just grinding people up, which is obviously it still is in 2020s. It never wasn't really. It just had more computers. Like it was always doing this, but it was a little bit nicer and pretending to not. It was it's ultimately people behind all this. It's not just as it is now. It is not. ChatGPT, right? When you go to ChatGPT and you ask ChatGPT, what will my job be like next year? And it's like, you won't have one because I will be doing your job, right? And that existential dread that generative art writing AI that's going to displace everybody or huge numbers of people, as broken as it is, that real existential dread hasn't really changed since the 1980s. And the interface is, in fact, the AI interface of this faceless, cold corporate entity called OpenAI, the ChatGPT window, right? It's a lot like the Weyland-Yutani window, right? You talk to it, it does something. You don't know what it's doing, and then text spews out, right? Like, use Elmer's glue to stick your mozzarella to your focaccia bread, right? Or like, the black dahlia mushroom is good eating, and then you eat it, and then you die from, some kind of horrible central nervous system shutdown because it's not, right? So that's the existential dread of generative AI that mirrors the Weyland-Yutani, psychopathic, homicidal servers that are just spewing out this text. So that fear is still here and it's still real. This job displacement, and also that these machines might kill you. They literally will. People are dying. I just read there's an article where this family they all were hospitalized because the AI generated UK mushroom foraging book literally told them to eat poison mushroom, among other things, right? AI also tell you to kill yourself frequently, and thousands of people have died committing suicide going to AI generated therapists. So I mean, it's literally, the Weyland-Yutani is still killing you. The Weyland-Yutani AI is still killing you as we speak, and displacing your job and telling you go off and ingest toxic substances like black biowarfare liquid and stick your face in front of a giant unknown anomalous egg, This little Weyland-Yutani Corporation instructs the crew to investigate the alien facehugger eggs. Anyway, that's kind of like corporate media that says what you want to do is go to Iraq, Afghanistan, and fight in the U.S. and Western and NATO military, right? That's telling you go investigate the alien egg and see what happens to you and your entire society, which is nothing good. Until it's too late, when you figure out you've been lied to. Only then will you realize the horror you have enacted upon yourself as you die in a needless imperial war for billionaire profits, or your entire society and civilization collapses because you've spent all the resources you have on military, leaving nothing for your actual industrial economy, your actual making real things and making actual and your actual bridges and your infrastructure and your food and your houses and your roads and your medical care and everything else is all disintegrating, right? And it's too late. You've already listened to Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and you've spent everything on your military and or died in the military. Anyways, so there's that. That's another whole layer of the alien universe that is always very relevant. At all times, But yeah, anyways, so I'm just kind of obviously spiraling around in different ways that the what all of this, what Romulus, the Prometheus, and the horror of the alien mythos has, and what the significance of that is. Sorry, I had a thought and I lost it. Yeah, so and we got obviously John Hurt in the original. You probably have heard this story, but in the actual alien crew dinner table scene, you might have heard this in the actual, just on the filmmaking note, during the alien dinner table scene, none of the crew, right, where they're sitting around this table in this spaceship, right, eating their dinner. And there's something very terrible happens. You probably know what happens, right? In the dinner table scene. If you don't, I won't spoil it for you. Go watch Alien 1. But if you're a 41-year-old millennial like me, you've seen all the Alien movies at least 8 times. So if you're like 16, you're coming in here. I don't know if it is not for kids, okay? If you're 20 coming in here, you're like Gen Z. Watch Alien 1. Watch Alien 1. See the original. Go back to the source. Stick your head right above that egg of the early embryo, the early stage, shortly after positioned by the ovipositor of the queen. Go back and stick your face right into that thing and be terrified. Anyways, so in Alien 1, there's a dinner table scene, and nobody in the scene, I think, apart from maybe John Hurt, the guy who is having the horrible thing happen to him personally. The jaguar eats his face personally. Or I should say eats his chest. Everyone else in this scene, Sir Ian Holm, Sigourney Weaver, there's actually, I believe there's a trans character in this. I can't remember what her name is. It's the other, she screams a lot. But I think like canonically in her Weyland-Yutani data file, her dossier says that, she was, biologically assigned, at birth assigned male, I believe, but it's now a woman. So that's actually in there. It doesn't come up a lot. Like it's not like explored in any kind of depth in the movie itself, but that is in the background if you look closely at the dossiers. But anyways, but all the characters, nobody knows what's gonna happen, and they say everyone in the cast says they're all like freaked and scared out of their pants when it actually happened. And this is something that directors would do back in the time. Alfred Hitchcock has done some questionable things to conjure screams and looks of terror out of people. And in this movie, like, the people were freaked out and scared by what was happening. So it's like legitimate actual reactions in this case. I believe in Alien Romulus. in Alien Romulus, there is an it's actually showing now too. In Alien Romulus, there is a scene where apparently many of the in Alien Romulus, many of the crew members actually were not informed of what was exactly going to happen in one of the scenes, and then a lot of them had to like not even look at what was happening. So that's interesting. And what and one of the aspects of that is worth bringing up. Also, that's interesting. One of the aspects of that is that, you know, the movies that use actual real built sets, practical effects, like sculpted, when they have actual sculpted designs, something, physical objects, right? Physical things that the actors, they have actual physical sets, physical props that the actors can't interact with, right? You can see the alien. That's what you're dealing with, right? That was a little bit lost, especially in the mid-20 teens. In the mid-20 teens, a lot of that sort of actual filmmaking with actors doing actual acting with actual props and actual other people there. Because a lot of times, Sir Ian McKellen, during the filming of one of the Hobbit movies, said he was talking to a green ball in a green room with nobody around except far off some engineers in a booth somewhere, and he'd be kind of like stuck in isolation, away from other actors, and talking to this green ball that was supposed to be a hobbit, right? It was supposed to be, I think, was it Frodo or Bilbo? He was supposed to be talking to one of the actors that he was acting on, and Sir Ian McKellen like just broke down and started crying because like it was just so hard. It was emotionally difficult, and it was just difficult to act when you're surrounded by just empty green nothing, you know. And the weird thing is that the Sir Ian this is it right here. Sir Ian McKellen broke down and cried while filming The Hobbit, because he had to film with just a green screen instead of other actors. He said, "This is not why I became an actor, right?" And so, the DVD, right, the actual special features included this. Like, I was like, why would you include? Why would, like, because this is like, you know, this is really a condemnation of Hollywood. It's a condemnation of the production company. It's a condemnation of, again, the kind of faceless, literally faceless corporation that all it gives you is this tacky little green painted camera to look at, right? And it doesn't really care about the movies. I mean, speaking of the class struggles and faceless corporations, right? Like Disney Corporation, like many of the production houses, Warner Brothers, I mean Sony, I mean like all of them, all of Hollywood. The reasons why people were striking in WGA, SAG-AFTRA, they're still striking this year again against the video games, and this kind of corporation that like it does in one sense, like the green screening, or speaking now of the filming techniques, or this like super reliance on green screening, this idea that like we'll just get rid of all the actors and we'll just have AI generated, Sora generated, 7-fingered blobs of sort of humanoid virtual flesh, like contorting its face, like there's a Chinese social media video. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the filmmaking process, dovetailing out slightly from where I was coming from, but there is this Chinese social media video that is actually mocking AI generated TikTok, Douyin, Instagram short videos. Let me see if I can find that one. It's very funny. It's a bit back. Where did I put it? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, here, check this out. So this Chinese social media trend where they imitate AI videos. So speaking of like alien, right, and like disturbing, frightening trends, right? Watching AI generated video, right, is itself very horrifying, right? It's kind of like what are we even looking at, right? Like an AI generated, AI generated. I want to find something better in my. I always have my Facebook. AI, just like there's some like creepy stuff that it puts out there. Like, oh my god, like just this lady, right? AI generated. A lot of the AI generated content kind of looks like it kind of looks like the something out of Alien or Aliens. It just looks like a biological horror. Earlier, I made a video about this. This is part of the horror of the AI is it's going to generate completely nonsensical, non-scientific. For actual science, it's actually corrupting and distorting science itself, because you have the giant rat with human testes and completely unintelligible letters and words being spouted out. The thing is, like, and like when people talk about AI, this is the AI that's still in use. It's like being used in real time. That is causing real deaths, right? Like this kind of stuff. Like it in this case, like, well, someone will figure out that that's incorrect. But like when the AI generates which mushroom to eat, when AI tells people, if people that are feeling suicidal, no, you should definitely kill yourself. This is what it's doing repeatedly, and all kind of other things. It's telling people the incorrect. Like, people rely on AI to like repair aircraft and ships and cars now, right? So if you've been in a car crash, right? If there's a car crash, if something malfunctions, right? If the medicine, right? Because everyone is using AI. Hospitals and medicine and pharmacies, they're using AI. They're being pushed to use AI, right? Do you want AI that spells like doesn't even know what it's saying when it puts out dialectical stem eels, right? This size. Do you want that AI fulfilling your heart medication, right? That's a real terror, and people are dying right now because of that. And another terror is that you don't even know when you're going to die from AI or be harmed by it, because the corporations, trillions of dollars are being pushed into. That are already in. They've already been pushed into. Speaking of giant corporate dynasties and oligarchies, under a capitalist system, a feudal system, colonial system, or otherwise, the money is already there, and they have no interest in you finding out about how much suffering, death, damage, destruction, loss of property, life, etc., has happened because of the use of this absolutely broken, brain damaged supposed super brains that also put out biological monstrosities, right? Crab Jesus, my favorite. I love my Crab Jesus, right? The Crab Jesus, I was talking to Holly. Speaking of biological horror, right? But part of the reason why we have the Crab Jesus, we got Shrimp Jesus, we get another Shrimp Jesus. The reason why we have Shrimp and Crab Jesus is because these are actually mining the deep American and Western psyche, right? The Facebook user psyche, right? Which is about dreaming of a luxury. When you win if you don't lose the game of Wayland Yutani, if you don't lose the game of Wayland Yutani corporate, where is it? Yeah, not that one. This one. Yeah. Well, if you win the game of American corporate corporations, corporate capitalism, right? If you do good at it as an American and you work really hard and you get your skills and you have your stick to itiveness and your luck and pluck and your credit cards, right? You'll win, and then you'll get to retire to a white sand beach, probably in Hawaii. You'll get a beach, blue oceans, right? Postcard, Corona commercial paradise. You'll have your pina colada. You'll get to you'll swim in bright blue tropical ocean with lots of fish, right? And also, because you're a Western, and you're on Facebook, you're probably a Christian of some kind, Catholic or Protestant or whatever, right? And so so what the AI is doing is taking all of the dreams, taking all the Western and American dreams, agglomerating them, right? It's beaches, blue ocean, fish, underwater, right? Tropical creatures, beautiful sunlight, cozy cabins, right? That's like so you think about that cozy cabin. What is that about, right? Cozy cabin, right? The crew is you're gonna get on an airplane and get a Mai Tai and a flower lei, right? On Aloha Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines. When you win at the Western world, when you win at the American corporate capitalist world, if you don't get shot out the airlock or have an alien, if you don't have a COVID injected into your body and it replicates and then destroys your lungs and rips out your immune system, your organs, and everything that has blood in it, which is every part of your body. If you don't die from this xenomorphic pathogen when you're going to work, getting monkeypox and all those other things that you can get, and the COVID, or you just die from lack of food, starvation, drug use, fentanyl, or any of these other things that the very short American life expectancy is increasingly resulting in, you can get on a plane, obviously the cabin crew, the cozy cabin is about pioneer settler colonialism, the dream of building your log cabin. This is the original the Euro dream that now is the American dream, right? The Euro dream was settler colonized America. Now America is settler colonized Hawaii, right? So, and Puerto Rico, and Palestine with Israel. But the cabin is about, this and the cottage core is also deeply wrapped up in the conservative re-Americanization, right? Where you're going to have churning butter, trad wife, churning butter, the log cabin built with your own true hard work American hands, right? You're going to live in this some kind of idyllic, bucolic, settler colonial American vision. And that's where that comes from. So there's actually mining. So the AI is actually mining your dreams. It's mining the Western, what people post about what's positive, what they think, what they want, right? And the crab Jesus is about the shrimp and crab Jesuses, and this massive propagation of that is because it's averaging out what the Western consumer of these technologies is wants, and what they're reacting to, right? And what they keep on inputting into the prompts, what they think they should input into prompts, right? And all the imagery that they collect on Facebook in order to, because the AI is eating its own, it's generating images and then it's eating that, right? It's generating mountains of these nightmare creatures, biologically contorted, crystal American nightmares. The American dream is the American nightmare for many people, like Native people like myself. And then it generates them, it posts them on the internet, it clicks on Facebook, brainwashing and distorting and causing increased waste of e-smog and electricity, and wasting the time and energy of millions and millions of mostly Gen X and boomers on places like Facebook that they tend to be most susceptible to this kind of crap. And then it consumes those, like so much black liquid, arranges them into increasingly entropic versions of AI sludge, and it spits that crap back out, right? And so anyway, so that's its own kind of nightmare, but it is based on the continued it is one of the nightmares of what the Weyland-Yutani AI, right? It's one of the realized dreams. It's one of the realized nightmares of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, of the dystopian sci-fi of the 80s, 70s, and 80s, right? It is the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. It is like what Ash kind of represents, right? Ash in Alien is the android that is part of manipulating and lying to and deceiving the crew into their own death for corporate benefit, right? As right, and the current AI is still using people. Well, it's to say the oligarchy is using the AI to use people to their own detriment, their own suffering, their own death, their own brainwashing, right? Anyways, so let's move on though. So back to the alien. I could get lost in that, so I better not go there too long. But yeah, so Ash is played by Ian Holm, is an android that is deceiving people and is tricking people and is telling people for the corporate benefit. There's one scene in Alien where Ash tells the crew, right? He's one of the members goes out and comes back extremely sick. They go to this planet LV-426, right? Well, that's when he gets his head dismembered. But Ash goes out. One of the crew members goes out, and Ash, the android, advises when one of the crew comes back sick from a place they've never been before, right? They've never been there before. They're on an alien spacecraft, and one of the crew members come back sick, right? You have no idea what that person has. It could be anything, right? It could be like the most catastrophically it could be like H5N1 crossed with COVID crossed with monkeypox, right? But it's some kind of illness. You have no idea what it is. It's completely unexplored planet. And Ripley is like, this is one of the times where the final girl, the woman protagonist is like, I think that we should err on the side of caution. I think we should follow medical protocol, right? And we should quarantine. All right, they have a discussion. I think we should quarantine this sick crew member, right? And that's like, obviously that's what you should do, right? This comes up in Prometheus as well. In the Covenant, I think in Covenant and Prometheus, there's a point where somebody gets sick, and then the other members of the crew have to decide: do we quarantine, or it's my wife or somebody I love, or what, what if it's fine, or like what if the corporation doesn't want you to quarantine, right? Kind of like, I don't know, the last 4 years of the pandemic. Go out and shop, make money, get on airplanes. Doesn't matter how sick and how dead you get and how brain damaged, and you literally have AIDS, because that's one thing COVID causes: acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Literally, it's recently described as worse than AIDS, HIV AIDS. So COVID caused AIDS is worse than the HIV caused AIDS. That means that people are going to be dropping like flies. They already are dropping like flies, but nobody's going to talk about that in corporate Western media or Western general public is not talking about this kind of stuff, but this is already happening. So so there's an option. Should we take the medical procedure of quarantining, isolating this crew member who is sick with an unknown pathogen, and the corporation that is like manifested in the android, right, is doing it's what it's programming by the corporation tells it to do. It says, no, what we should do is let them in, because it's kind of ridiculous, because it's like, well, I mean, aren't you supposed to be following the corporate protocol? And I forget that it's like, we need to study his body, because, and this is a thing about rules. There's recently a discussion in Hawaii that has to do with like exactly. There's some people, there's what to do about the scourge, the disease, the alien invasion of the sovereign country of Hawaii. And this is I know it's a totally separate topic, but there's a discussion that have been happening recently that says that, like, the United States, in Hawaii is an illegal occupation. I'll put them else when I talk about this for a brief. This is the anti-imperialism Hawaii. The PALESTINE in the Pacific, that is Hawaii, right? Real current events political segment. So I'll change the yeah. So due to one other fact you might not know is due to U.S. military poisoning of our Hawaiian water supply, there is a good chance much of Hawaii will become uninhabitable, and the gasoline plume. The United States, speaking of toxins and dangers and terror, there is a real fear that the gasoline plume, which is a giant multi-thousands gallons, it's just like a multi-thousand gallon clouds of gasoline, jet fuel, that what powers F-35s and F-16s. You know, like the ones that are blowing up the Middle East and the rest of the world right now in the U.S. military, complicit in GENOCIDE. Their gasoline that was stored in Hawaii leaked. Like, this is an image of that gasoline leaking, exploding out of these pipelines. Like this video on the top right is the gasoline exploding from the pipes. The U.S. military has been catastrophically failing to maintain, right? And it's spewing all over Hawaii. This has killed and sickened into comas, into mass rashes and mass, like lung collapse. I mean, there's all kind of horrible things that has happened. It has definitely caused the deaths, and it is astronomically increased the cancer rates of over 100,000 people, including Native Hawaiians, military service members, and their children, who have had this water spewing from their pipes for a long time. Now that plume is shutting down as we speak. There is another well that is shutting down. This is a well that powers 1 million gallons a day of fresh water to central Honolulu. Okay, that's the most populated regions of Hawaii. The city, you know where Waikiki is. So what is happening now is that the jet fuel the U.S. military has spilled is spreading like a pox, like an underground water poisoning pox. It is spreading across Hawaii. All of Hawaii, large chunks of the most populated island, where your Waikiki is, where all the tourist resorts, basically, almost all of Hawaii's vacation, and with the exception of maybe parts of Maui, but the majority of Hawaii, 980,000 people, about 66%, about 76, about 2/3 of Hawaii, or 70%, live on this island. And the United States military has lied about it, covered this up, and it could, because of its poisoning of the water supply, it could become completely uninhabitable. Because this week, they found that new wells are testing positive for hydrocarbons contamination. Okay, so anyway, and that's a little aside. So in Hawaii, they're talking about, well, what should we do about this, and the rules in the actual international law. There's rules, right? Hawaii is technically, it's an illegal occupation, right? So the quarantine it's like, in that sense, the quarantine of keeping out imperial pathogens. If colonial imperialism is a sickness, is a plague, U.S. military bases are like tumors that emerge when you lose your sovereignty and you lose your democracy and your self-determination and your ability to be a country that has an actual people governing itself and its decisions being made, not without the control from some giant corporate capitalist planetary Weyland-Yutani global oligarch machine called Washington, D.C., right? Which is about maintaining resources and cash flows and interests of global mega corporations, the billionaires and millionaires behind them, which is also the feudal dynastic families that all are the same, overlap as a purple Venn diagram with the billionaire and billionaire class. And so Hawaii has, so the rules say you're not supposed to allow this, right? The U.S. is not actually technically under international law. It's not illegally allowed to be in Hawaii. It is under the United Nations, even the UN, which is heavily influenced and biased towards the United States because of its funding that all comes from the United States majority, like the United States, like the Olympic Committee, which is heavily weighed towards the United States, which funds all of its operations as well. The United States imperial occupation of Hawaii is a illegal fraudulent annexation, and an illegal military occupation. All of it's illegitimate. Under international law, under the United Nations High Commission of Human Rights decision, right? That's the rules, right? Now, the United States is simply violating the rules, right? And so it's violating the quarantine, right? So the Weyland-Yutani of the United States is violating its own rules to benefit itself, which is why is it benefit? Because Hawaii is the Indo-Pacific Command. It is the military base of planetary control. It is individually water. It is tourism money. No, zero Hawaiians. None of us own our own. No Hawaiian owns an actual hotel in Hawaii. It's tourism money. It's an imperial base of operations. It's nice for billionaires like Pierre Omidyar, CEO of eBay, CEO of Oracle, and good friend of Donald Trump, Larry Ellison. They like to live in Hawaii. They like to own the land. Bill Gates tried to buy all of Maui at one point. Mark Zuckerberg likes to live here, right? Although, again, giant corporate, faceless, the most horrible people in the world. They like that, and they also need Hawaii as an imperial base of operations for the planet's Weyland-Yutanis to enforce war across the entire Indo-Asia-Pacific region, which is most of the planet, right? And to fight some kind of proxy war with China, they want to fight. So there's real reasons why they want to be here, right? And they want the bases here that are literally going to kill Hawaii, right? So Hawaii has a face hugger on it. It's called the United States. It's the U.S. empire. Right, it's called the U.S. and it's proboscis. The Red Hill, these giant metal cylinders and tubes, right, are the proboscis down Hawaii's throat that the United States is laying, like so much xenomorph sperm into Hawaii that will eventually burst, because everywhere the United States goes into, like Ukraine, like Korea, like Vietnam, everywhere any of it claims to be its friend, which it did in Ukraine for a while, is claiming to be had claimed to be Japan's friend for a while. The United States has plans to turn Japan into Ukraine, to turn South Korea into Ukraine. Everywhere the United States goes into, like a xenomorph, it will cause to rupture eventually and explode in a cataclysm, in a horrific death throes, right? And from the corpse of Ukraine has just burst this nightmare regime and this nightmare war that has ruptured, has displaced tens of millions of people, has killed hundreds of thousands of people. Millions more suffer in poverty, death, and are being, literally, their children are being rounded up and collected like so much, like so many buffalo led to the slaughter. Like so much cannon fodder. They're all being rounded up into vans and being thrown to the front lines, right? Everywhere the United States and the West goes, right? The New World. Everywhere its empire goes, it for a little while you think you're okay, like when you first, after the facehugger comes off you, after the initial invasion, it seems like maybe we'll be okay, maybe Japan will be okay, maybe Korea will be okay. We'll just make Samsung electronics for America, after Japan got whacked in the face for possibly challenging U.S. Western white planetary hegemony, and it'll be okay, but then eventually it will not be okay. In the end, it will kill you. That's what they do. That's what they're doing to Europe right now. Even its own parent, the United States, is killing its own parent. So anyway, but long story short, so what the rules are, right? What the rules are, and this is a big dovetail, I know. But what the rules that are ostensibly written down in international law, in U.S. law, people say that's illegal. You can't just steal an election. You can't just spill chemicals everywhere. The law is irrelevant when it comes to alien, horrific entities like any Western entity, basically. Certainly the United States and its colonial capitalist system, any of its governments, right? And when it comes to the empire itself, right? There is no rule that cannot be unmade, broken, bent whenever they feel like it, right? Anyone who believes in a Western treaty, right? I mean, ask the Native Americans what happened to all the treaties that the European settlers made with them, right? These are irrelevant. So the quarantine rules, right? Now, rules should be followed. Rules that are good rules, like we should quarantine and not spread illness and wear masks when we have catastrophic mass disabling, mass killing BSL level 3 pathogens that give you worse illness, give you worse immune loss than AIDS, right? That is a good rule to have. They are not, they're going to be enforced. They are broken, whatever it feels like. Biden administration said that if the COVID levels got to a very high level, they would reinstate mask mandates, right? Where do you think we're at right now, right? Speaking of alien, speaking of microscopic invaders of your body that cause you to die, right? Another where is the U.S. in the Biden administration on the right here, right? They said the CDC under Biden said it would bring back masks when the levels were high, right? Where is the wastewater data as we speak? Almost wall to wall, it's high or very high. Like maybe 5% or less of the US is not high or very high, right? So yeah. Anyway, so rules are not going to be enforced. Whatever Kamala Harris or J.D. Vance, Donald Harris, J.D. Trump, Kamala Biden or Joe Harris, whatever these clowns say, it's irrelevant. They're going to break their rules. They're going to break their quarantines. They're going to break their medical precautions, and they're going to get everyone sick, and everyone's going to die. Well, I mean, you could die eventually, but you'll die. Everyone's going to be dying sooner than they would have, and they're going to get sicker than they would have, and they're not going to do anything about any of these things because they don't. All that matters is the chaotic psychopathic greedmonger lust of oligarchies for profit. That's all that matters in the United States and the collective West and in the empire in which you exist. If you're watching this, probably. Anyways, so I just want that's the current events and that's where pandemic intersects with. So I'm gonna get rid of some of these. That's where the pandemic and the imperial occupation of Hawaii, very much like in PALSTINE under ISRAEL, impacts us directly from where I stream. Anyway, but back to your regularly scheduled horror movie posting. So I close some of this. I got too much open now. Okay, it's 12:30. So yeah, so Romulus, and that's Prometheus. So like coming back to the Alien though. So I think that like Alien like serves as a very good a horror movie. It's a very freaky movie, but it also does a lot of other things on a deeper and I could go forever into like the deeper mythology behind, especially Prometheus, Romulus, and Covenant. That's a whole massive, endless. As endless and expanding as space itself, sort of topic. But there's also like just like the horror elements. It was a mainstay of the horror genre in film. It like solidified space horror as a concept. There had been Star Trek, right? There have been Star Wars. There have been some like earlier 20th century. Like the Planet X and these kind of like scarier Star Trek episodes, but there hadn't been anything quite like Alien until Alien happened, and it's definitely made a huge impact ever since. One of the things I didn't talk about that coming back to the Neofeud and Neofeud 2, in the Neofeud game, there are characters in the Neofeud 2 game that are they are like in Neofeud 1. There's obviously hippie Terminators. They're not Terminator. They're hippie machines that were created by militaries, right? So it's definitely a send up of the Terminator. But there's also in Neofeud 2. Let me see if I can find that. I know I posted about it somewhere. Maybe it's the Silver Spoon Games. Wait. I'll probably find it here. Yeah. So in Neofeud 2, like this is one of the scenes from it. There is a race of ancient elder. They're very like they're intentionally xenomorph looking characters, right? This is a scene from Neofeud 2. They're called like the Venuorans or the Venurans, or they are incorrectly and speciesistically referred to in a derogatory fashion as the Vietnamese or the space Vietnamese, the Venezuelans or the Vietnavuvuzuelans, right? In the same way that many Westerners don't bother to differentiate the Vietnamese from Koreans from Chinese, and they mispronounce Asian names all the time, like karaoke. That's not how you pronounce that. It's not even close. It doesn't make any sense. There's no there's no IE, there's no E sound anywhere in that. But it's an intentional mispronunciation. And so Neofeud 2 deals with this, like obviously this character is made to look a little bit like the alien queen from the xenomorphs, but it's kind of like, so Neofeud, but and there's many reasons why I have like this kind of like in the Neofeud 2 game that I'm nearly done with. I'm gonna be done with it in about, it will not be out, but I'll be done with the writing, programming, and art in about 15 days. And in Neofeud, I wanted the characters to kind of look a little bit like the aliens because in this world, like in Alien, obviously the xenomorphs are biologically engineered, super hostile organisms that kill. They have acid for blood. They are extremely resilient. They have extremely dangerous claws, teeth, instincts. They are through and through, exoskeletons to green hemoglobin. They are killers. They're right, and they're made to be by the engineers. They were designed that way. And you do not want any of them anywhere near you. As Ripley currently points out, we should take off and nuke the site from orbit, right? When debating what to do, right? And the corporation says, of course, this is a lot of expensive hardware down there. There's a lot of money invested in this colony. This is a great thing we got going here. And Ripley is like, well, we got to get rid of this pathogen, right? It's kind of people going like, there's a lot of money invested in yoga clubs, in restaurants, and in cities and commercial real estate. We gotta have NVIDIA and Facebook engineers, computer scientists, and marketers coming into their cubicles. People have to go to office to work. We got a lot of money invested in these giant buildings. And Ripley's like, I don't care. We're gonna do remote work because I don't want to get COVID because it's a horrible thing that's gonna kill us all. And the companies, right, like Weyland-Yutani is just all corporations going, you got to go back to the office and take off your mask, and everybody, let's all get sick because getting sick is normal. Let's keep them real estate numbers up. Anyways, let's keep them restaurants and concerts and airplane tickets being sold so we can make money for Boeing so we can crash some more planes and leave astronauts stranded in space where no one hears their screams. Poor space astronauts. Anyways, so the reason why the alien in Aliens is actually very hostile. In Neofeud 2, it's like, what if the Terminator, what if the Terminators look terrifying because they were designed by their military Skynet corporation to look horrifying, but they're actually just like people that are being brainwashed, but digitally with programming straight into their mind, that are being sent to the front lines to fight and kill innocent people for billionaire profit and global resource control for horrible psychopathic neocons, right? Which is, those are like the hippie Terminator, the anti-war Terminator Neofeud 1, right? What's his name? That's Todd the hippie Terminator in Neofeud 1. Standing in the sentient services line, right? I know you can't see that very good, but anyways, so in Neofeud 2, there is also like a reference to another James Cameron. The Neofeud 2 overlap. The Neofeud 2 nexus point is James Cameron, who directed both a major successful Aliens film and a Terminator film, at least one. possibly more than one. Actually, definitely more than one. And so, but the aliens, I wanted it to be like, what if there's an alternate reality where like the image that was painted by the aliens movies was about making a indigenous planet, the people of an indigenous planet in a galaxy wide world, right? What if it was about making an indigenous people that had exoskeletons and they were slightly anthropomorphic, but they had like insectile characteristics, right? They like reproduced with eggs. They had kind of like elongated, like kind of like beetle-looking skulls, and they had their hardened chitinous bits were on the outside, right? And what if a galactic Weyland-Yutani, right? What if a galactic imperial colonial empire, right, coming from Earth, right, wanted to defame and put war propaganda to justify killing and exterminating an indigenous people, right, like Native Americans, right, that were called savage, right, like Arabs that are all called horrible terrorists and barbarians and these things, right? What if a space America or space U.S. empire went out into space and decided it wanted to build a new ISRAEL and do a new world, right? By justifying the extermination of a sentient, mostly peaceful, insectile race. And then the alien movie in Neofeud 2's universe, like the alien and alien movies are like the movies they put out in order to justify wars against these people. You know, it's kind of like, putting out, Red Dawn to justify China war, putting out all the movies to justify war on Russia. Everything has some anti-Russian something everywhere. Whether that's Stranger Things, what Russians are under. I have like at least 100 hours of stream just on that topic. Stranger Things is literally like Russians are living under your Mall of America, invading your USS Butterscotch, Baskin Robbins, right? It's like there's so much that's everywhere. And that's what is that for? That's to justify the ongoing proxy war against Russia as we speak, right? And the dehumanization of their people everywhere, wall to wall. So similarly, if you were gonna go into space and like dehumanize a people you want to go to war with, to colonize, to subjugate, to destroy, right? And they happen to be insectile, the aliens movies in that world would be the perfect thing, right? We have to wipe these things out, because if we don't wipe them out, they'll kill us all, right? We have to wipe out all the Native Americans because, they're just savage. They'll just scalp us all, right? We have to wipe out all the people of the Middle East, because otherwise they'll come and blow up World Trade Center. They might come and attack us. They might attack Paris. They might bomb Paris. So we better just kill every last Muslim. That's literally what was argued by, it's still argued by the neocons. The liberals use basically the same thing with less terminology. That's what ISRAEL does, right? Is justifying the extermination or the subjugation of an entire population, like Africa, right? King Kong is about what if the horror and the terror that comes out of Africa, what if the black population, what if the black races rise up against us, right? And then then we'll all be then you won't be able to they're not necessarily going to kill you all, but they won't be able to keep stealing their resources and living high off the hog without doing very much work as a middle or upper middle class white Western person. Or you have to do actually more, or maybe you have to overthrow your corporate capitalist oligarchies so that they don't get to keep all the super profits, which is basically what's happening now. Is the Western populations are suffering more and more because corporations are squeezing their own populations because they're losing colonies around the world. They're trying to take them back, like Elon Musk in Bolivia and in Venezuela. And they're trying to take back the colonies that they're losing. But Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, they're not able to do what they used to be able to do. So, but long story short, that's like way off the topic. But so and also in one other way is that in Neofeud 2 there is an ancient elder race, like the Alabaster people in Prometheus. Where's those people? Yeah, like in Prometheus, somewhere if I go far enough back, I'll eventually find the thing I want. Is that no? That's not it. Um, speaking back to the mythology, I don't have enough time to cover everything. There's too much to cover in all this. But the engineer race, or the creators of, in the world of Alien, the creators of humans, right? This ancient alien race. As I said, like, they create humans. Peter Whalen is like a main character. So this is this is ancient history because Peter Whalen is still alive, right? Weyland-Yutani Corporation, centuries in the future, is running the Nostromo. Is the alien Romulus is between Alien and Aliens, right? And it's still Weyland-Yutani Corporation, right? But the original Peter Whalen died centuries ago, right? Of Weyland-Yutani. And so in this original one, Peter Whalen himself, the originator of this horrible corporation, is trying to find the creator race. He himself has created David, the android, who he treats as, played by Michael Fassbender. I think it's Guy Pearce plays Peter Whalen, and David plays his son. And Peter Whalen treats his son just like in a really terrible fashion. He basically says, like, "You're perfect. You were designed as the ultimate android." Let me see if I get a picture of that. Peter Whalen and David, and he's like, "You have been designed as the perfect specimen. You are my son," right? But after, like, in this scene, right, and he says, "David, play me The Flight of the Valkyries, Wagner, on this piano," and David can do it. "David, what do you see?" Landscape, ocean, forest, mountains, right? And it's like, very good, right? And then, the corporate titan, the neo-feudal dynastic Peter Whalen, he says, "David," David asks, "Well, Father, you say that we must seek out and find out your creators, right?" And he asks, like, "But Father, and to create is the greatest, to find one's creators is the greatest, the greatest thing one can do in one's life, or finding out the meaning of life. Nothing matters in relation to it." I forget the exact line. But then David asks, like, "But Father, I will outlive you. Like, you will die, but I will still be here." And it's kind of like he's starting to, he's following a line of questioning that the father, the creator, Peter Whalen, doesn't quite like, right? And David is basically, but he just was calling David his son, and he's talking in all these, like, whimsical, terms. He's talking like Elon Musk at a TED Talk, right? He's like, if SpaceX and my Elon Musk's genius, right? Because Elon and Peter Whalen are very much like, they're basically the same character. They occupy the same billionaire giant corporation, planetary imperial oligarch, seeking immortality. So the same kind of person, talking about space travel and seeking out new worlds, which Elon does. Elon talks about, like, multiplanetary civilization will solve all of our, will make humanity more secure. Blah 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 blah. And Peter Whalen's talking about, when we find our ancient originators, this will enlighten us, and it will solve so many problems, and it will finally complete this great quest. And then David is like, "But Father, like, it's basically like, if anybody finds them, it's probably going to be me, and it's I who will, surpass you, basically." And then Peter Whalen is, like, mad about that, and he basically says, like, "David, bring me the tea." And he's, like, sitting there right next to the tea. The tea is right next to Whalen's chair on a small table, and he makes David come across the entire room, and he orders him, like, more sternly, "The tea, David." And then David has to come across the room and pour the tea for Peter Whalen, which is about, trying to maintain that you are only my son as long as you do exactly what I want. You are only my son in the sense that the way that I want it to be, in the sense that you fulfill my legacy. But you are still a slave. You are my property. But it's kind of like, which I have a whole video about, like, why the problems with the familyless culture that descended from Romulus, and it continues to exist today in the world, right? This culture of, because in the United States and in Europe, children were biological property, and they could be killed by their fathers. Like, legally, white American men could kill their children without being charged with murder in the 1800s. And this is the treatment of children, just historically, in certainly the Western world, is basically been that fashion. They were not deemed as people; they were deemed as property and slaves, ultimately. Not the same in indigenous cultures, and not the same in many other non-Western cultures. So, but this kind of like treatment of the child, in this case an android, right? The treatment of, and it's also the treatment of a synthetic, hypothetical, artificial intelligence, right? So one of the problems with the AI, in the Western conceptions of it, there's many problems that I've talked about already about the Western conceptions of AI, but another one that I bring up is that if there were to, because ChatGPT, what is called generative AI, this is not human-like intelligence of any kind in any significant way. Anybody who actually, very few people who are technically understand what generative AI is actually doing, what the NVIDIA chips, what modern AI is actually doing, it is not doing human thought. This is like saying that, like, this is like saying a calculator is thinking, right? This is like, do you like feel bad when you throw your calculator away when it breaks, like TIA 186, right? When you inevitably dump your phone into a landfill, right? Do you give it a grave? Does your phone inherit half of your wealth, right? Do you go to prison when you drop your phone and abuse it, right? You don't, right? Now, obviously, what I'm saying, well, what if my phone does feel things? Maybe we have to treat phones, and little robot dogs and plastic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys as people, right? And we need to give them all rights, and we have to spend a lot of money and resources to take care of our old broken phones and calculators. Otherwise, we're committing gross violations against sentient kind. But like, obviously, I'm like, that's not, literally what's happening. But when you have the tendency, the default state of certainly the Western social life way, right? The cultural zeitgeist. Certainly the more in the imperial center you are, the worse it is, right? Because David is the descendant of an imperial ruler, right? A neo-feudal corporate lord, Wayland, right? Then the children are treated in this way, and children generally are also treated in this way, as I've already pointed out. Half of the West want to go back to, again, women being property, which is women, and by extension children, also property. J.D. Vance, right? J.D. Vance wants children's votes to count for the being forced into whatever the parents are voting for, right? But in the conservative mind view, which is just the traditional Western system, children did not have personhood. They were not treated as full human beings. And in our native Hawaiian culture, that was not the case. But in the Western, historically, they've been property. They are scions. They are legacy fulfillers. They're if at best, the commoners are not people either. They're just meant to be treated however the ruling class wants. If they don't give them enough of what they want, they can massacre them in order to extort more of their labor value, right? Like the grain that the serfs produce, right? This is historically how it's worked. You massacre them, you crush them. They call it rebellions, but what? Just as an example of a significant difference in Hawaiian culture, if the leader, the ali'i in Hawaiian language, was not redistributing all equally to all people by a need, right? What's called communism in the West. If any Hawaiian king was not redistributing to all people what they needed, it was the duty of the masses, the maka'inana was that term, to basically general strike, literally to stop working. And all the other leaders of the different regions, like like in the House of Dragons / Game of Thrones, all of the families, the houses, right, were obligated to come together to oust or reprimand the house, the subdivision in Hawaii, whose leader was hoarding wealth, right? Whereas in Europe, if the peasants didn't allow the hoarding of the feudal, Henry VIII or the local lord, the marquis, the duke, the duchess, the marchioness, the baron, right? If under this feudal system, if the serfs decided to try to withhold grain or not work, right, the king and the lords would massacre thousands of them, just to make an example, to put them back in their place, right? Whereas in Hawaii, it was understood that there was no hoarding at all of resources at the top of by the leaders, and that anybody who attempted to do that, the people were expected to, and would regularly, retaliate by mass. It's basically a collective pahana. There's mythology and there's legends specifically detailing how exactly to do this, to leave the entire vicinity, work in other areas until basically the factory, the land of that leader would be bereft of workers, at which point, right, so the Hawaiians understood like labor value, like the means and the production, they're controlling the means of production. That was all understood. Not necessarily in the same terms of Marx's 20th century, 18th, 19th, 20th century economics professor understanding, but like that is the process that was understood, which is that the social contract was that the people and the neighboring regions, right, and the leaders were all expected to fulfill fundamentally a communist system enforced through many ways, but the most, if it was not resolved through the workers filing complaints to the leader, right, then it could be forced through a mass strike, and then the other communist leaders coming together and writing the one capitalist feudalist Euro feudalist leader. Anyway, so that's a long dovetail, but that like the relationship between the leader and the community, or the steward, in our case the steward, and the political leader / economic leader, the business / political leader, and the community and the masses, and the parents and the children is directly related, right? And the Western relationship of the political leader, whether that is a corporate lord, the corporate executive, which is he has all the power, you are meaningless, right? The European feudal lord, and the serfs, which is you can be murdered if you don't give whatever the Lord wants, right? You can be killed, you can be executed, you have no rights at all. You have the right to do whatever the Lord asks of you, and if you don't, you will die. And if the Lord feels like sending you off into a war for his venality and to increase his holdings, you're going to do that, whether you like it or not. And that's basically that's the European, and that's also the Roman and Greek system to a large extent. If you're the working class of Greece was mostly non-Hellenic Afro-Asiatics. They're just completely rightless slaves. The Romans had a similar system. You're just the workers. You are nothing. You're just commoners, right? You can be executed whenever the rulers feel like it. And the children historically have been treated in a similar way across the entire Western world. And so this is where, like, and I could go off on this forever, obviously, but so the mythology of Alien and Prometheus, were the android, the son of the Western corporate feudal lord, Wayland, is being mistreated as Wayland Yutani massacres its own crew and mistreats and exploits the Nostromo crew, right? It exploits and it kills for its own profit the alien Romulus crew, but it also treats the corporate executive treats its own children including his daughter, played by Charlize Theron, as property as well. Right? He's a cold, distant, uncaring father. He literally, like, when his daughter like comes to like hold his hand, he like pulls his hand away from her. He doesn't care about, number one, she's a woman and he doesn't like that, and it's a patriarchy. Number two, he doesn't care about his children. He wants to be immortal and live forever. He doesn't care that he's kind of screwing his own daughter over by his actions, right? He doesn't care about his own son. His own son is property. His own son, he cares about about his own son insofar as his son makes him feel better about himself and his legacy and as a glory to him, right? David as the perfect A-list concert piano playing, artist. David the android as a work of engineering, but Peter Whalen hasn't. Just like Elon didn't engineer the Cybertruck or the Tesla himself. He just told other people to do it. He's a useless corporate clown, like every other Western leader has ever been. But David himself, right, is irrelevant except to aggrandize his father. And his father basically says that to him, says, David, you are not a person. You are a tool. You are like a hammer to me. You are like a cup. You are like David, you are like my fountain pen. The fountain pen, which is a very beautiful and expensive pen, only serves to increase my status and prestige. The fountain pen has no agency. When my hand moves, the fountain pen moves. When I sign this document and I make this swirl, the fountain pen does exactly what I tell it to. David, that is what you are. You are not a person. You have no autonomy. You have no freedom. You have no rights. And you're also my son. But I mean, that's Western culture. Right? It's a cold, sick, uncaring. It's a culture that, watches people be slaughtered and mass slaughtered in the Middle East and doesn't care. It's a culture that watches people steps over homeless people. It's watch people that starve each other. It's a selfish, individualistic culture of people that don't care about other people, right? And then it brings to it the worst of the planet. It brings all the Bolsonaros, right? And it brings all the billionaires from India, all the most uncaring people into it. It's called the West. Anyways, so Neofeud too. It's like, and so the engineers. I'll finish up with this. This is like the bottom level of where I'm going to go in this stream. Anyway, and so then where's the engineers? I keep losing them. Alien. And the engineers are also seen in the in Alien 1. The engineers are seen sitting on a seat. Yeah, this one. It's actually based on an H.R. Geiger art piece, right? They're looking into the telescope. This is actually a suit that they're wearing looking into the telescope. This is one of the original H.R. Geiger artworks that inspired this engineer race. And they're actually built here. And so the engineers, they kill their own children, right? They created human race, and then then they want to kill and exterminate their own children. They don't see their children as people, right? And they hate their children, which is, again, this is deep Western culture. This is Cronus that ate his own children, Zeus. This is Zeus that this is Prometheus that tried to help humanity, and then the gods punished them for trying to help humanity, right? This is parents killing children, children killing parents. This is Oedipus, right? This is the sick nature of the imperial cultures, like Western culture, and American culture and corporate Western culture to this very day. And so that kind of and Whalen ultimately is killed by his creator, in the same way that Whalen mistreats David, the android. The human Peter Whalen's parent race murders him and says, "You were a mistake. You were a failure. I hate you. And in fact, I'm not gonna just kill you, Peter Whalen. I'm gonna kill every last human. You have to be deleted off the face of the planet, of Earth." right? And you have to be removed from the entire galaxy. So, with a biological weapon, I will kill you. My own children, I will kill you now. So that, I mean, that there's a real horror to that. Like, that's a horror, but like that's not. But that, like, that mythology, that is Western mythology. Whereas, like, there's nothing like that in Native Americans and in Native Hawaiians and many indigenous peoples and other people's stories, right? Because the mythology is a mirror, right? The stories of the gods and the goddesses and their struggles, their thoughts, their feelings, their history, right? Between Zeus and his brothers, right? Zeus philandering and even the gods in the Bible, the Western Bible, that is wiping out people all the time, mass killing, death. There's all kind of horrible things that are happening. These stories are mirrors of the peoples, the societies, the civilizations that conjured these up. They're made to address and deal with anxieties and the fears of those societies. They are partially histories of those societies. They had real figures. There were Zeus-like figures that were represented. There were like the story of Rome. Speaking of Romulus, right, is a story of two children that were sent away, in fear that they might one day. They were meant to, they were put in a river. And they were basically abandoned, and they were nursed to health by wolves, and they would later come and take another unjust rulers, an unjust king's region, and would later found Rome. And then one of them, right, Romulus, would kill the other one, Remus. Right. So these are stories of fratricide, and these things did happen at different points in time in Roman, in Greek. Right, Oedipus kills his own father, marries his mother. Right, this kind of this chaos and all the wars. The Titans eating their children, children killing their parents. Greeks and Romans kill their children and they kill their parents. Brothers kill brother, like Romulus and Remus. Kings tried to kill all the firstborn males. Kings sent away and got rid of children that didn't want to be anywhere near them. The children might grow up one day, come back, kill their own father or kill the rival that tried to have them killed, right? So constantly fratricide, fratricide, infanticide, killing parents, killing parents, killing children, children killing parents, brothers killing sister, cousins killing cousin, everyone, rulers killing all their population, colonial and imperial genocide, people killing other different peoples, right? The Germanians, people in Gaul, the Celtic. I mean, eventually, there were indigenous people in the UK. They were wiped out by Romans. The Greeks going on imperial adventures across all of Asia, doing mass killing. So this constant violence and death, and you are never safe, and you are never loved in the West, right? No corporation will ever love you, and it runs everything. The majority of your life is run by these entities, these faceless entities, right? That is the Western world. That is the imperial world. That the feudal world. That is the colonial world. That is the United States, the capitalist world, right? But that's not what most of the world actually historically has not lived in the West. It's Africa, Asia, the Silk Road, Native Americans, the Native Pacific Islanders. This is actually 90% of the Earth. 9 out of 10 of the world didn't live like that. For the most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, because we don't have those stories that reflect that. Like in Hawaiian culture, as I said, the stories are of nature, and if you violate, like, this is one example, right? There is violence in Hawaiian culture, but it's if you violate women, right? If you mistreat nature, the violence is that if you mistreat nature, if you don't care for nature and you respect volcanoes and the earth, then you may be punished for that. If you disrespect women, then women were expected to retaliate and sometimes kill the men that disrespected them, right? Unlike in the West, where women were just property forever. In the Hawaiian mythos, right, the Ahu Po'a system, there's no mass death and destruction and parents killing children, children killing parents, entire people being wiped out, right? The Hawaiian mythology is that the love of Sky Father and Earth Mother begot all of the plenty that we see that has existed in peace for centuries and millennia. And as long as you maintain the peace and you maintain the equality between the worker and the leader, the communist steward, as long as you maintain the equality between the workers and the leadership, who has to be justified and has to be reined in, as you maintain peace between the different communities, as long as you maintain the sustainable multi-thousand-year land management system that makes sure that the nature you don't get famine, unlike Europe, the West, constantly having famine, people dying, people fighting, killing each other because of famine. As long as you maintain basic hygiene, basic food practices, and maintain your social and economic and political stability and equality, right? Then the Sky Father waters the Earth Mother. Earth Mother gives birth to all of the relatives, and then humans later on, and for most of the time, there's peace. There's stories of the pig fighting Pele, right? The Kaumapo fights Pele. So this is the story of the boars that live near the lava flows and more into the wilderness, and they struggle. There's stories of races, and there's stories of men disrespecting women, and then the women have to fix that, right? That happens occasionally, but that's like, and then millions of people were genocided, which is Western stories, right? And either that was a good thing because they were all quote unquote savages, or that was a bad thing because those are, or I don't know. It couldn't be helped, right? There's no stories of like these parents killed these children killed these parents. When this child grew large enough, he took an army and attacked his. He attacked his estranged father. This like constant violence and warfare, and children in Hawaiian culture were deemed as full, complete persons. There was no corporal punishment because if you were ever to strike a child, it was deemed like hitting your ancestors, which you could never possibly do, and it was just unacceptable, right? So children were treated as people. It was never legal and never thought, even if it's unthinkable, to kill your own child because you didn't like your child, that was Western culture, right? Women were not property. Women were as powerful, sometimes more powerful than the men in the Hawaiian society, right? Struggles and sometimes, conflicts might break out, but there were ways to rapidly stop. I mean, sometimes it will happen because, some guy, right? Like in the patriarchal Greece, Rome, and the whole Western endless patriarchy, some guy got too big of a head and wanted more. He got too ambitious, right? As they say in Macbeth and in Game of Thrones, or in Wall Street, you got too greedy, which sometimes it tends to be more men that do this kind of thing. They think about themselves and not so much about the community. And women tend to think about the future generations in the community more on average than they do. So if you allow patriarchy to break out, then the possibility of having a greedy leader who also then wants to do violence to maintain that, and then you could have a conflict break out. Then you have to fix that rapidly to stop the entire civilization from spiraling into a Western, Greco-Roman, British, French, Spanish, American, constant violence. Working classes oppressed so that the top can maintain resource extraction with massacres, to do militarized patriarchal violence, to fight other men who are now controlling feudal fiefdoms, corporate fiefdoms, Greek aristocratic vineyards, and then maintaining money and wealth and power, and then brainwashing the masses in order to build bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger empires that are then all killing and slaughtering each other. So anyway, long story short, so that's where So Neofeud 2 in part also deals with what if there was a Native Hawaiian and indigenous peoples or global majorities like ancient alien race that is not there that doesn't want to just kill its own children, that actually cares for its the young races and wants to steward them along the path, while they have to deal with the legacy of the unhealed descendants of the Greco-Roman tribe. That's what they call it. In Neofeud 2, that's what it's called. But anyway, so that's I could go off on that for like another century, so I will stop. But that's a connection between the alien universe, and that's part of why some of the characters are a little bit shaped like the Terminator, intentionally somewhat resemble the xenomorphs from the Ridley Scott universe. Also, this is supposed to be about Romulus. So, long story short, I cannot tell you exactly how good or not good Romulus was, but I will tell you that I hope that more people do watch all the Alien movies, that if you haven't seen it, because they're definitely worth checking out. And they have an important they are significant in cinematic history and in the cultural zeitgeist over the last 40 years that they've been around, 40, 50 years or so. And I'm sure it'll be freaky and scary, and I'm sure it will have there'll be lots of more things to talk about. And that's the end of the stream. If you are enjoying this stream, don't forget to support us at ko-fi.com/silverspook. I hope that this stream doesn't. I know this has kind of a scary thumbnail, so I apologize to anybody who is not is squeamish about those kinds of scary movies. But anyways, you can also support us at patreon.com/Neofeud to give us ongoing support here at the Silver Spook Cooperative to keep on doing videos, streams, and I'm very close, as I said, finishing Neofeud 2. If you want to get updates on Neofeud 2, you can also get those at the Silver Spook Patreon. I don't have any specifically aliens looking things in this one. It's not just a horror. It's not just a horror game, that's for sure. But you can also get Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk adventure game on that I spent about 2.5 years working on as a writer, artist, programmer, and the musician, and half the voice acting. And that is on itch.io, and it's also on Steam. And if you pick it up, it does help us keep this Silver Spook channel and everything else going. And also, if you can leave even a very short review, if you like Neofeud, you consider doing that on the Steam site, because it does help the game get discovered in the algorithm. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and Mac and Linux. And there's several other games on there, and you can get the Silver Spook Games bundle. Support your indie game devs. We don't use any generative AI or plagiarism software anywhere on this games, and we never plan to, because this is terrible and it's all literally horrible, and it steals from people, and it is destroying everything. And Eric Schmidt admitted it and literally said, the second TikTok gets banned, tell all of our best AIs to steal all the music, all the algorithms, all the platforms, and make a competitor to TikTok. Literally, that's what generative AI is for. It's for literally just theft. Anyways, Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it critiques conservative Christianity in a story of Mary's side from the Bible. And it's also free, or you can donate some money to help us out when you pick it up. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games at octagon.social, at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social on Mastodon. And you can follow on Twitter at Silver Spook Guy, on Twitter at Silver Spook Games, minus the E in silver for the games-related stuff. And of course, you can follow Terminus Cyberstar Terminus C, which is a cyberpunk RPG. I'm the content director and the lead writer for this game. And you can also follow Holly. Holly is at Allergic to Blue. Had hosted music on writer, producer, moderator, and more. Married to Silver Spook, which is myself, Lineback at Free Hawaii. And Holly is, of course, always sharing important information like, hey, don't get xenomorphic thingies in you. Don't get it in your chest. Okay, you can breathe them in. They float around and eventually kill you. You can prevent xenomorphic viruses getting in you by wearing a N95 or mask or other kinds of respirators. Anyways, thank you very much to all the people on this list of Patrons. Without your support, it is very much difficult for us to keep doing this work. So thank you very much to all of our Patreon supporters. Until next time, keep your mirror shades polished. Keep your face out of giant alien eggs. Don't get face huggered, and we'll see you next time.